don't be too precious to not look death in the eyes, to not look the death of a project, of a relationship, of an opportunity. Because once you look at the death of those things in the eyes, that will get you moving. You go, wait, no. I actually do want this book to do well. Let me go back. I know it's really hard for me to, in the first 8 months, I wrote really well, and it's really hard for me to go back and revisit it after the editor has just totally given me so much to do. But hey, do I want this book to die? No, I don't. All right, let me go back to it. Do I want this relationship to die? No. Okay, well, let me go and look at what I did wrong in that situation. And that facing that death over and over again is so important. It's just putting your back against the wall, and that ripples out. And I think that's harsh, and it's not a pretty thing to do. It's not teddy bears and rainbows, but it's essential to look into the future of every decision and indecision, which is like just a decision to distract yourself or do something else, or decide in your mind, no, it's not that important. No, who's really going to read my book? No, who's going to listen to me? No, there's enough out there. Like, they're all micro decisions to not do something, which ends up being, I'm going to do something else. If I'm not going to go exercise, I'm going to sit down. I'm still doing something. I'm sitting down. I'm not bringing action and connection to the destiny that I've decided.
Kyle Spyride walks us through what it looks like to tailor your own destiny, or as he puts it, destination. No longer settling for the happenstance of life, but tailor fit your individual destiny. And just as importantly, deciding to be brave and uncompromising about this, even when the world doesn't agree or even understand why you're doing things differently. One of my favorite quotes from Kyle in this episode is, "Don't be too precious to not look death in the eyes." His brush with death at a 33% chance of survival jump-started this journey for him. However, you don't need such an extreme experience to know that in order to rise to your true destiny, part of yourself needs to die and fall away. He talks from experience about how to manage this process. I am your host, Rebecca Molman, trauma therapist turned podcaster and coach. Welcome to the Reframe, where fear is brave. Here you will learn tools, techniques, and strategies to get back in the driver's seat of your own life. There is so much to dive into today, so let's get started. Kyle, it is absolutely wonderful to have you here today. And I've really been looking forward to our conversation today. You have a new book coming out, or has already come out, Decide Your Destiny. And that's really what we're going to be talking a lot about today is, what does that mean to identify what your destiny is and be able to move in that direction in a way that is meaningful to you. So welcome.
Thank you, Rebecca. Thank you for having me on. It's been good chatting to you in the lead up podcast. Like I said, I haven't met many people that are as committed and detailed and thorough with their setting up. So this ought to be polished, which I'm not always known to be polished. So let's see how we go.
It'll be great. Well, could you just share just a little bit of your backstory so people have an idea of who you are? Because you have quite the backstory and why this project is so important to you.
Yeah, 100%. So I think when you've got a project or when you've got a book in you, or you've got something you want to share in the world, it's because you've got a story that is in your circles unique, or just has a bit more to it than your average story did beforehand. But for me, my story was kind of for first few years of my life was being written in an interesting way. My mum was an international model. She flew, across the world to Moscow, to Tokyo, to different parts of the world doing modeling gigs. And she was on the sets, these photo shoot sets with the likes of the actress Charlize Theron and all these people. And so she was, she had me, and then she just had a contract, a couple months after, and then each contract got extended. Um, and actually there's some magazines where I get mentioned, like her name and then my name, the young boy. But and I did do some modeling as a baby and as a young teenager. So that was the extent of my career in that industry. But I yeah, no more there for me. But I think you look cuter as a baby. Anyway, moving on. The, the big part of it was that while she was away, I was being raised by her mother, so my South African granny, and I was in a pub, in the back of a pub. It was like a diner, one of those American diners that people are fond of, Grease Lightning and those sorts of things. And so that was the kind of the vibe of it. And I was kind of very social with adults from a young age, which was very lucky. I was playing pool and had a bit of attitude and a little bit bitey with these adults, and they loved the kick of it. And so that was my first few years. And then I came to, my mum was touring around the world with her career. She met a man in Australia, and then he said, "Well, you got this young kid. Um, Australia's a much safer, and I think it'd be great if you grew up in this country, especially at that time. Um, it was a very tumultuous time, 1995. Mandela came into power, which was great for the
Mm.
country, but it was a lot of violence and kickback and like aggression. So he was considering all those elements like it's a turbulent place, especially at the moment. So probably best to grow up in sunny Australia with a beach by your doorstep and a nice breeze in the afternoon. So yeah,
Oh, that sounds wonderful.
yeah, yeah.
So then how did it transition? Like how did the work that you're doing right now blossom out of your own life experiences?
I think from a young age, I just had this strong desire in me that I wanted to help other people or impact other people or make people feel happy and better. And I think when you're a young kid, I had a lot of young like sort of trauma challenges as a younger kid, and I think you see marital challenges in front of you, you see violence, you experience some of it. You want to put the unnecessary pain away and the unnecessary disharmony away for people that you love around you. And so I think that was kind of generated within me. And when I came to Australia, I went very inward. I was in this new place with these new strange people, and I, didn't know, like, didn't have that connection that I had in South Africa. And my grandmother saw me, and the first moment she saw me, she had this message from God. She said, "It's shot through the roof," and she felt like I'm going to be important in this kid's life. I'm going to be really important in this kid's life. And she was. 12 years later, I was out on the streets. I had nowhere to go and could have gone down a very bad path, just given the environment, not necessarily, I was a fine like teenager, but I was dealing with a lot of home issues and a lot of problems, unresolved problems that were escalating and escalating. And so you can turn dark and turn dark and never turn back. And so I skipped a couple of trains one night and called a train down to my grandparents, knocked on their door in the middle of the night, and they opened the door. They opened up their arms, they opened up their heart, and they ended up raising me. They ended up becoming my parents, and they looked at me as their son. They said, "You're one of our kids, Kyle. Regardless of who had you, like you're our boy." And so that was special. I guess I had a second chance at parents in that sort of realm, and I could kind of get away from a lot of the turbulence. And so my grandmother and my grandfather, my grandmother's a counselor, so I go into their room every day, and they had a view over the bay, and I just chat to them. I didn't realize, but I was doing a lot of healing because I was just having conversations. I go in the morning, go at night, like when I had issues, when I had challenges, when I just wanted to ask them questions about what they thought. And they were different than parents. Parents are disciplinarians. And so when I was 18, I was sitting on my grandfather's couch, and he's an architect, so he designed his home, and he had light gushing in from the window, and there was kissing the side of his face, and he had this big boyish grin, and he turned to me and he said, "Decide your destiny." And I said, what are you saying, Clive? He said, decide your destiny. I said, "Oh, what are you talking about here? We're not talking about anything." And he said, Kyle, make sure that whatever you do in your life, that you decide your destiny. And for me, at age 18, that went in one ear, went out the other. I was playing rugby at the time, so I probably got
Mm.
knocked out of my head, that weekend. But it's something that actually came back to me in October 2019. I was over there living on the West Coast at this point in my life. And so I flew over to the East Coast of Australia and I held his hand and, I was there caring for him and we basically got him a hospital bed in his home because he was passing away. And this man was healthy. He
Mm.
spent 92 years, like no pharmaceutical drugs, no surgeries, no procedures. Uh, I think he had one stint in the hospital when he had food poisoning. So he had this like clean cut life. And so when he got sick and they took him to the hospital, he turned sour. He's like someone that we didn't notice. And we're like, okay, the family said, all right, we need to get him out of here. We need to get him, like a hospital bed. We need to like let him pass away in his home because he's just not enjoying this the sick factory, and so he had to get the hell out of there, which is it's the contrary because I spent a lot of time as a youth, like a lot, like well, from 18 years old, a lot of time, more time than I'd want to in hospitals. And so he was in his home and he was fading in and out of consciousness. And my stepfather said to him, "What do you see, Clivey?" And we're all around, sitting in the lounge room and he's got this big open plan area. And what do you see, Clivey? And he said, Jesus. And then we all gathered around his bed and we're like, wow, oh my God. Like, and then um, my stepfather said,
Mm.
like, well, what does he look like? And then Clivey said, he's standing by the river with a boat for me. And we were like, wow.
Mm.
Yeah, and so if I asked the question again, it wouldn't be the question I asked, but he asked it. He said, well, what does he actually look like? And he said, love. And he had this big boyish grin on his face.
Kyle, could you give us a little bit with decide your destiny to be able to give a little more definition to what your interpretation or experiences of destiny, just to give the listeners a little bit of context?
Yep, 100%. So the way that I look at it is just reversing the words, destiny or decide. And I think how I look at it is the word destiny was the first one that really sparked a lot of people. And if you tell someone you're writing a book, my goodness, be ready because it sparks something in people. And I think it's because everybody has something.
Sure.
They've got a message in them they want to share. They've got a story they want to tell. They've got a wrong they want to right. The way that I look at it is, destiny, destination, destinations. I'm going to arrive at many destinations throughout my life. So that destination that I put the pole, I put the flag up on that hill and I go, I want to get to the top of that hill. Great. I'm going to put a fishing line or a rope from that pole all the way to the bottom of the hill where I am. I'm going to pull myself up. Now, as you're pulling yourself up, there's going to be wind. There's going to be distractions. There's going to be a little ladybug and you're going to go, oh, how cute. I want to pick it up. There's going to be many things along the way towards your destiny or towards that ideal that you have set out. And that's why I think it's really important to have a daily practice or daily steps where you can go every day. I'm moving 1 foot closer. I'm moving 1 foot closer. And there might be times where, like I said, those distractions, that wind, you know, you have a bender, in Australia, we call it a bender or something like that happens, or you fall off path. And the point of that destination is, okay, no matter what, I'm going to get there. I'm going to get there. I've set that as a no matter what goal. So I'm going to have to figure out a way when I fall off to get back on.
I love that analogy of anchoring in through the fishing line, right?
Yeah.
But anchoring into what that goal is. And I wonder, there's also in that analogy, there's this thread, there's that fishing line that will continue, even if the wind does blow and blow the fishing line a bit. The action steps are the steps that you're taking, moving closer and closer towards where that hook is. But I wonder, in your perspective, what is that thread that you can continue to step back into alignment that kind of hones you back into the direction of that you set the anchor at the other side or set that hook at the other side?
So for me, it comes from something bigger, which is, I guess it's hard to start off with, and it's probably teaching someone and going straight to like the end point. But it's, for me, it's always a spiritual obligation, a spiritual mission. I've been given chances by my grandparents. I've been given chances by life. I've been given multiple opportunities. I'm very, very grateful. So it comes from a place of gratitude. It comes from a place of grateful for where I am. I've got a long way to go, but I've got a lot of work to do. And when my grandmother said it best to me, she said her father told her, "You've been helped a lot in your life, so you have to help a lot more." And that's the binding
Mm.
string for me. And that obligation to help and serve in everything, it kind of puts everything in alignment because, okay, well, in order to help you, I need to help me. The blind can't lead the blind. Like I need to be able to fill my cup up. I need to do the things I need to do. So you're not neglecting yourself. You're not going, I'm going to go help you, but look, I haven't really even got dressed today. If you don't get dressed and you walk out into the streets trying to help people, there's going to be problems. I'll just say that much. But yeah, so it kind of puts in those factors, like, and it's like a ripple. Okay, I need to look after me. I also then need to look after my home life, my immediate family, because if that's in disrupt, I can't really help other people because I'm going to be in a meeting with someone. I'm going to be thinking, oh my God, that argument. Oh my God, that unsettled, unresolved issue. Oh, I can't even like listen to this person's words because my mind's back there in that fight that we just had or whatever. So and
Mhm.
it ripples out. Okay. Now how's my team? How's my network? Oh, yeah, is everyone okay? Oh, yep, that person's a bit upset at me about this. Okay, cool. How can I try and resolve? And so, and then it goes out again. And then it's just that ripple that goes out. And
Mhm.
if you're an ethical person, you've got high morals and principles, you will want to start in the center, make sure that you're aligned, and then make sure other parts are aligned. And you can't, at the end of the day, we live on this planet. There's going to be things that aren't completed or edited or photoshopped or perfect about you. There's going to be things that you're working through. There's going to be things that maybe a relationship that isn't ideal, or maybe someone in your network or an upset client of yours or something like that. There's going to be those disruptions. And so I'm not saying you have to have everything perfect before you can go and help someone out there, but you're just trying to stabilize those kind of ripples.
Yeah, that actually, the way you're describing that sounds a lot. It, we use the language of, or I use the language of resiliency. So you have your personal buckets of resiliency, mental, physical, emotional, and spiritual, that you attend to throughout the day or throughout the week, throughout the month in different ways to make sure that you're showing up in the best physical way possible, like best as a human. But then those different buckets of life have the attention necessary so they're not derailing you, whether it's financial or relationships or career. All of those have a tendency of being able to like really derail
Mm.
our sense of resiliency. So that's
Yeah.
when, as you were describing that, that's really what came to mind for me.
Yep. Yep.
S- So then when you talk about destiny, if somebody listening to this is like, yeah, that sounds like a great idea, but I have no idea what that even means for me. Like, I have no idea because we are the accumulation of all our past experiences, right? And
Yep.
sometimes it's hard for people to reach into the future and even dreamscape what that might look for them. How would you coach somebody through that process of dreamscaping their own unique, tailored destiny?
Yeah. So the first thing would be to change your environment because the environment is what is keeping you, in that place. It's either keeping you in the past, keeping you stuck in the present, but how are you going to take that step into the future? And it's amazing because I've been driving through this town the past few months, and every time I drive through, it looks different. It looks totally different to me. Like the buildings look different, the colors look a bit different, the way things are organized, the opportunity, the people, the possibility, everything looks different to me. And it's because I'm changing so quickly within myself. There's a great YouTube video, Canon photography company did it, and it was 5 photographers photograph, like this man in a blue shirt, and they're each told a different story about him. One person's told that he's just straight out of prison, fresh out of prison. Another person's told that he's a businessman. Another person's told that he's just been divorced and his kid, his wife and his kids are gone. Like another person was told, that he's, like, out of a job and trying to find. And so like all these different people, were told, like these 5 different photos were told 5 different things. And so they photographed him in 5 different ways, and he looks completely different in every single photograph. I think that's the way to have a look at our environment and our world, because if you're trying to go out there and you're going, yes, I'm positive. I've listened to something. I've pumped myself up. I've worked out in the morning. I'm ready to go out there. And then you walk down the hallway, you're about to go out the door, and you've got some family member who's, moping around and just is just like this black hole energy source that's just sucking everything down. It's just going to take that shimmer off you. It's going to bring you down. So you might have to go traveling for a week. You might have to just get in the car and drive. You might have to just do something in the morning, just something to shift your environment, because your environment is going to bind you to your potential that you're achieving. And so that's the first thing I'd say in terms of talking about your destiny is you need to change your environment. Get out. I'd say get out, go for a walk. Just think of yourself as this swirling energy ball. And if it's just in this box, you know, being fed the same garbage, it can't grow. And so you need to get out into the environment and let it grow. And that's when you can start thinking. And I'd say journaling is a great thing as well. Put on a paper destiny, and put on the paper destinations. What destinations do I want to get to in my life? Where do I want to go? Oh, I've always wanted to go to Paris. Great. And then you backwards engineer. That's the whole point of destinations, destiny, anything you want in your life. Oh, I want to have 3 kids. I want whatever it is. And then you just backwards engineer. And that backwards engineering process is what gets you excited, because that's you seeing the steps. That's you seeing the ladder, like, oh, I can go up there. I can go up there. Okay. And that is what gets you to actually take action. Otherwise, yeah, it is just writing on a paper, or it is just an idea. But once you actually start breaking it down, and in the book I talk about the break it down method, is you break it down to that lowest common denominator. Like, okay, well, what do I need to do right now to just step towards that, to make some sort of shift towards that? All right, I need to stop seeing that friend, because that friend thinks humanity's lost and everything's terrible and there's no point in having kids. Maybe I need to just distance myself from that person if I want to have kids one day. I do believe honesty and communication is the best method. So if there's people in your family that you need to tell, because sometimes, and I've been a copper of this, you might be going, all right, I want this or I want that in my life. And your friends and your family, they won't be able to understand you, because that dream is not in them. That dream is in you.
Mhm.
And so you got to try and paint
Mhm.
the picture of that dream and why. A lot of times people think you're doing things for selfish reasons, but they won't realize, hey, once I get here, I can help this person. Once I get there, I can help this family member that's struggling. Once I get here, I can help these people. And then they don't understand the selfless reason. And I guess also the mirroring, you have to go like, hey, me doing this has no glisten off you. It's got nothing. It's me. I've got to do this. I've got to figure this out. I've got to work out what these dreams are within me. And that's in the book I was talking about, going back to those kid characteristics, like looking at like what you were like as a kid, because kids are dreamers.
Mhm.
Kids, nothing's impossible for kids. Kids don't have bad programming or miseducation, along the lines. They're an open canvas. You're ready to paint the world in the way that they want to paint it. And that's something that is why I think a lot of people don't achieve their dreams or don't live out the lives they want to live, is because they get programmed not to, or they get educated not to. You get educated, no,
Mhm.
don't be that way, don't be this way. Like you just get, I look at it like contracted, or confined, you just get pressed, just squashed down and down and down and down, when you've got this beingness that just expands and blows out. And, but you need to be this, you need to be like that. You need to shut up here. You need to be quiet there. You need to stop talking. Like you just get
Mhm.
really stifled, and it's an unconscious stifling, because, you don't want your kid kicking random people in the shop, or, I used to do something. I used to, and I got no idea what reason it was. And maybe as a kid, I saw clothes and I thought, oh, cool. Like I want to try on all these clothes. But, and I've heard and thankfully other people have told me that they did this as well. So I'm not alone in this. But I used to get into a mall, and I would just, a very young kid. So just letting you know, this wasn't last week. I used to get into the mall, and I would just strip all my clothes off, and I would run just like a maniac. I just run through the store and in between the clothes, all this sort of stuff, and you just think, why does a kid do that? Like, what do they have within them? Like, what sort of gall do they have within them? What sort of confidence? What sort of ideas do they have that they can just go and do those sorts of things? And I'm not saying that that's the strategy for your dreams and your business, but it's the kind of attitude you need to have. I just need to run. I need to go for it. I need to just strip off all the baggage, all the crap, all the limitations, and just go for it.
Mhm. There's something that as you were talking is the first time I really thought about it in a different way. As a young child and as somebody on your deathbed, there is a simplification of
Mhm.
thoughts. There's a simplification of life. You go back to the basics that actually are the more powerful emotional or states with the play, with the states of awe, with just pure expression, with
Yeah.
unconditional love and gratitude that just pour out of these children. And as you come closer to the end of life, for a lot of people, there can be a very similar
Yeah.
return to that. And I wonder, like you're saying, reverse engineering, if sometimes with our adult minds that we're kind of in the middle of those two and making things so complicated
Yeah.
and really in stepping into the art of deconstructing and deciding what it is that we want to step into is if we could go back to the core tenets and simplicity of early childhood and then reverse engineer. If you were on your deathbed and you looked backwards, there's a eulogy exercise that actually people can do is where you look backwards and what would you want that eulogy to read? Because it taps into deeper core values and experiences that as an adult may not come across as far as like, I want to jump out of a plane, or I want to go bungee jumping. And that's really great. And that's really awesome. But when you're looking at it from the perspective and looking at destiny and curating that, I wonder if it would be a good idea to make room for those deeper core undercurrents that
Mm.
move through and give texture to life.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. I love that exercise. And, I think if you don't go deep, and I've been told sometimes like, oh, you go so deep so fast, or some people have, oh, like you're great at building rapport quickly and going deep with people, but sometimes you try to go deep with other people, and it it kicks you in the face, or it just doesn't work, or you got to try and find where that fits, and you go, okay, this person, and some people you meet up for years, and you're like, okay, I just can't go to the depth. This person's locked that away, but we've all got that depth, whether that depth is our subconscious, and I think a lot of it is just beliefs that we've just like cocooned sacred to us. And so you got those kind of beliefs that you're like, okay, I'm going to cocoon this in. And if I want to go into the depth and going deep is to go and examine that, your kind of ways of being to die off. And I think that's something that is hard and it's confronting, but someone very close to me has taught me that kind of death and rebirth, that that willingness to get rid of it. And if you're going to change, you've got to get
Mhm.
rid of something. It's like a suitcase. You've got your suitcase packed. All right, actually, you know what? I just heard it's going to be summer where I'm going, not winter. All right, what am I going to do? I got to get rid of something before I can put something else in. And that's been my life over and over again. And it seems like once you change a lot, those death and rebirth cycles quicken up. It's the death of the old belief, the death of the old attachment, or the old feedback loop of, oh, when I get sad, I got to have chocolate. When I get mad, I got to have Netflix. When I get glad, I don't know what. But those kind of cycles. Every time you're killing those off, you're creating the space for this new you to evolve. And when people tell you, wow, you've changed, you're different, you like, like anytime someone says that, and I was chatting to a creative fellow videographer, photographer yesterday, and he goes, some people will comment on his work, and if they're commenting on his work, I know that my work's good. But other people, if they go, I didn't quite like it, he goes, I know I've got to improve. So you're not treating everything the same, or every change the same, or everybody's mentorship
Mhm.
and words the same. You need to be able to have that willingness to change where you need to change.
And I think that's bringing us back to the decide part of the
Yeah.
flow that you have. what I think of when in that willingness to change and that cycle of life and death. And there's someone I heard recently saying, and I've said this in a few sessions recently, is the idea of dying as many times as possible in a lifetime. And when we get set at a certain relatively, young adult age, a lot of times we kind of set ourselves on this trajectory, and it's this beautiful deconstruction of frameworks that no longer serve us, which I think is happening on a much larger scale, incredible scale across the world, where
Yeah.
there's this natural cultural
Well,
deconstruction,
yeah.
which as above, so below, right? So it's going to mirror in our personal lives on a very large cultural scale as well, or
Yes.
worldwide scale. But the contrast is really between the process of surrender and control,
Mm.
where it's the moment where you realize you really don't have control over over anything except for your own relationship to the experience in front of you, and trusting enough to surrender into the moment
Mm.
is a very scary process because it's inviting in the unknown. It's saying yes to what is uncertain and unpredictable, but it's only through that process that the actual deconstruction or death can happen to allow that new growth to come from it.
Yeah. The answer is just break it down to what are the daily steps that you can make towards the destinations that you want. Signal out what those destinations are. And then your is like, it's your journey. And that's what my grandfather told me. It was like when he wanted to go and make these decisions and decide, he wanted to build a house in Cronulla. And in Cronulla is like a well known place in Australia now. But at that time, there were no houses there. There was just bush and rock. There was
Mm.
no sewage line. There was nothing. And so his family, everybody, like with pitchforks, came against him. But they were like, no, what are you doing? No, no. And he had a strong, loving, beautiful relationship with his parents. And so did my grandmother. Um, that's a lot of the reason why I think they are the way they are. And even so, when he was building his house, his father, who wouldn't even help him put on the front door because he just didn't have the dream that Clivey had. He didn't have it
Oh.
within him. They still had a loving relationship, but it was so interesting to see that decision. And I think that's why decisions are so hard, because as soon as you make a decision, you decide something, it reverberates in that environment. And yes, we surrender and we don't have control of a lot of things, but we impact and we influence a heck of a ton in our lives. And like that ripple, every decision is like that ripple, like going out. And that's why I think for people, decisions are so hard. Decisions, and not just like, yep, the first decision. Okay, New Year's is coming. I'm going to write my goals. All right, but like, what about next week? Like what about in 36 weeks time? What about, like, how are you going to continue to keep deciding? That's why the destiny, it's everyday destiny. What steps am I taking towards the destiny? And how are you going to keep deciding? And you have to almost build in that muscle. You've got that understanding that you've got to surrender, like you said, and you can control your orchestration, your steps, but you have to groove in the muscle of deciding and making decisions. And also for a lot of people, sometimes making a decision and it not going right and being okay with that is hard. That's why a lot of people won't make the decision. I don't want to be wrong. I can't, my ego can't handle being wrong or whatever it is. Like I just, you know, you got to go, yep, I was wrong there. I own it. Hand up. Yep. But hey, that wrong step got me to this right path. And I think that's a lot of life is that. And you look at the people that create some sort of success or create something in this life worth of a measure where
Mm.
they feel, wow, like they had a lot of wrong steps.
Oh, yeah. Many more things that look like they didn't go right, but it's that difference of taking it as a learning opportunity versus I'm a failure and personalizing it.
Mm.
I have a question for you for listeners that, and also a pattern I've seen with clients is you know what you need to do, you made the list,
Ah, yes.
in the list,
Yep.
and you're just not doing it. Like, can you help bring words of wisdom to those listening that just, how do you get from the, I know what I need to do, but I don't want to?
It is something that I still struggle with. I think everybody's going to struggle with throughout their life. You're not going to get everything right. Definitely not going to get everything right the first time. But one thing I can say that has helped me, when I talked about death earlier, at the age of 18, I was facing the end of my life. I was put into a coma to help stifle a disease, like a bug that was affecting the major organ in my body. And so I was put into a coma to see if I could survive. And my family were told he's not going to survive the night. And there were three other occasions where no, he's got a 33% chance. No, he's not going to survive it. And so I kept defying death. And that's where a lot of the story and who I've become through that death and that rebirth. And in order to actually decide and keep deciding and showing up and be willing to do it, I was in hospital. I had two different directions I could go. I could go and have the major operation, but my life was going to be affected like this, and I was going to have all these challenges and all these constraints. Or I could try this other option. And my stepfather, he flew over from Ireland. He said, "There's a thing called the alkaline diet." And I said, "What's that?" And he said, "The alkaline diet basically is a juice cleanse that's going to change the ecosystem of your body, and it's going to starve out sustenance for this bug." And I grew up just eating protein and building muscle for rugby, and I said, "Can it work?" And I believed in him because he'd always done right by me. And so I made that decision. Now that decision was tough, like, because you're in in an environment that's not accepting of your decision. You're in an environment where you're going against what the professionals are saying. And then and for everyone listening at home, I use both the 10,000-year-old natural health healing properties and the medical instruments that helped me along the way. And I've merged those. So I'm not on one fence or the other. There's good, there's good to be done in both. And so, but at that period of my life, I had to kind of work out, all right, where am I going to go with this? And I went, okay, I'm going to trust my stepfather. I'm going to do this juice things. Straight away, he had a juice prepared in his bag, a beetroot juice, gave it to me. I sipped it, instantly regretted my decision. Instantly, I cannot do this. My mind went, this is disgusting. I cannot do this. And because I had no palate for it, I had nothing ready for it. And so instant decision, and then instant, I don't want to do this, and so there's going to be so much of that. And in that hospital, there was 6 weeks of that. There was decision. 5% of my family and friends were against my decision. The entire environment I'm in are against my decision. I'm literally having to go to war and battle every day for this damn decision. And it's a risk, it's a chance, but it's a chance that my stepfather believed in and that I believe in that. I had to believe in him more than I believed in the outcome, because I didn't know the outcome. He'd done it before and he'd seen the result. I had to believe in him. And sometimes you have to believe in someone else. Sometimes what you have to believe in someone else guiding you there. And that's where you surrender your control of the outcome, and I think the decision helped because what was at the other end, it was canceled out. One end is a life that's stifled. I still had dreams at that age of playing international rugby and all this sort of stuff. And the other end is death, and so it's like, okay, I don't have many options here. I guess I can only go forward with this direction. And that's where you find ways to put yourself up against the wall. But what can I do when everything's fine? What can I do when my life is perfect? What can I do when, everything's kind of like that sort of, that seemingly and trickery of, oh, everything's just stable and fine. And I'm not really going to be concerned about in the ocean that a big wave could come out of nowhere, as I know nature to do that, as I know the world to do that, as I know my life to have those interactions. And I've gotten rid of any healthy paranoia. I've gotten rid of any healthy skepticism. I'm just going along, and then wham, and then you're on your back feet in those moments. And so how do I get through that? You have to put yourself, when we talked about environments earlier, you have to put yourself in that place where you are confronting yourself, you're confronting the situation. And so for me, I've had these health things. And if I want to work out, if I want to get on a program, I have to face the reality. Hey, I want another 60 years on this planet. Okay, great. I've had this major impact. I had life pulled out of I have to go back there. And not as like to trauma and become a victim of it and everything like that, but I have to go back there and go, oh crap, it is important that I take care of my health. It is important that I work out regularly. It is important that even when I don't want to do it, I just try and move my body, do something here because I know where that pathway lands me. And I think that's the thing
Mm.
of don't be too precious to not look death in the eyes, to not look the death of a project, of a relationship, of an opportunity. Because once you look at the death of those things in the eyes, that will get you moving. You go, wait, no, 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 no. I actually do want this book to do well. Let me go back. I know it's really hard for me to, in the first 8 months, I wrote really well. And it's really hard for me to go back and revisit it after the editor has just totally given me so much to do. But hey, do I want this book to die? No, I don't. All right, let me go back to it. Do I want this relationship to die? No. Okay, well, let me go and look at what I did wrong in that situation. And that facing
Mm.
that death over and over again is so important. It's just putting your back against the wall and that ripples out. And I think that's harsh and it's not a pretty thing to do. It's not teddy bears and rainbows, but it's essential to look into the future of every decision and indecision, which is like just
Mhm.
a decision to
Yep.
distract yourself or do something else or decide in your mind, no, it's not that important. No, who's really going to read my book? No, who's going to listen to me? No, no, yeah, there's enough out there. Like they're all micro decisions to not do something, which ends up being, I'm going to do something else. If I'm not going to go exercise, I'm going to sit
Mhm.
down. I'm still doing something. I'm sitting down. I'm not bringing action and connection to the destiny that I've decided.
Thank you for that. That was well said. So we're going to most certainly have the all the links in the episode notes, but you want to just take a moment and let people know maybe where they can find you and where they can get your book.
Yeah, 100%. So you could find me Kyle Spyride. So it's Kyle and then Spyrides. A lot of people say. So Spyrides. And I'm on YouTube, on Instagram, different sort of places. And the book is on Amazon, it's on Spotify, Audible, and it's my voice. I love listening to audiobooks. And so I said I had to do it. Like, yeah, because I love listening to the author. And then you can follow them on YouTube. You can like learn more about them. And I really love that. So I had to do that. Super, super painful, hard experience. I'll tell you that much. It was tremendous. But in hindsight, I'm glad I did it. And at decideyourdestinybook.com, you can also have a look at the book and some courses and different sort of things that are coming out from there.
That's wonderful. I'm so excited for you to bring all of this out into the world and touch as many lives as possible. So, the last question is in this moment, if there's somebody listening that feels like they're on the precipice, which is, I think, is a lot of people, honestly, of making big changes and just kind of standing at the edge of that cliff and having almost paralyzed by fear, because that's a common experience that I've heard people sharing. What would you say to them? What words of encouragement or wisdom would you say to that person who they know they're going to take that step, but they're just scared?
Belief. I'd say, just as you said to me there, you're excited to see what's going to come out. If you can believe in yourself and get people around you that will believe in you. For me, I was talking to you about my grandparents. They believed that something could be done when I couldn't believe it. I was standing at the edge. I couldn't take the step, but their belief filled me up enough to start to believe it myself, or even go, all right, hey, you believe I'm a great singer, you believe I'm a great actress, you believe I'm a great dancer. You really think there's a lot, and a lot of times in life, it will happen that way that someone else will go, no, man, you got to get this book out there, or no, get a grip of yourself. You've got to get up. You got to go there. You've been bestowed this gift. You need to get it out into the world. I don't care if you post it up and one person sees it or 100 million, but you just need to start getting it out there into the world. And it comes back to that belief, because if you can not trick yourself, but if you can convince yourself and indoctrinate and program yourself enough to be able to believe in yourself and in what you're doing and in the decisions you're making, and believe in the people. Okay, this person's been right about a lot of people. This person's a good person, or they've got good values, good faith, and they believe that I can do something on this planet. All right, maybe I need to just revisit that. Then you can start to achieve it. And I
Mhm.
think it starts with that belief.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time and everything that you do.
Thank you, Rebecca.
It's
I
been
really
great.
appreciate it. You're incredible, and thank you for
Mhm.
thanks for believing in me.
Until next time.
Till next time.
If you've enjoyed this podcast, make sure to hit that follow or subscribe button and share it with a friend. It helps bring this content out to more people that need to hear it the most. And as always, may you be the change you want to see in the world.